welcome back to another edition of Issues in Education. Mondays during the Noon Report, we spotlight the issues impacting our schools with Dr. Ralph Kerr at the Teaching and Learning Institute in Houghton, New York. Ralph, welcome back to the program, sir. Great to have you with us today.
Thank you, Bob. Good to be with you and with our listeners again today.
All right. Hey, Election Day is tomorrow, and education issues will be figuring prominently on the ballot. Even though it's an off-year election, there's important stuff to decide. You've got school board races in Pennsylvania. I know you talk all the time about how important that is. And there's this school debt limit referendum in New York. If you would encourage our listeners, Ralph, explain to them why it's important, even on an off-year election, to show up at the polls tomorrow and vote.
Well, it really is important, and I think, with all the stuff that's going on in the world around us, we need to acknowledge the fact that we are free to vote. We have the right to do that, and we need to exercise the privilege that we have to vote. And certainly in Pennsylvania, where the school board elections are up for grabs, it's very important for people to get out and vote for the school board members of their choice. I hope by now that our listeners have checked out who the candidates are and they understand their positions, and then they will actually exercise that right to vote tomorrow. There's no point in complaining about what's happening in your school if you don't vote on Election Day.
Yep.
So take tomorrow as the challenge to do that.
All right. And explain, I know you did this last week, but again, because a lot of people are going to go into that polling booth tomorrow and say, what in the wide world of sports is this? Talking about that school debt limit referendum. Explain how that works and why you're supporting it.
Well, interestingly enough, apparently I didn't do a very good job of explaining it last week, because I did have a call actually from a teacher that I used to work with during the week, and she said, we're in the teacher's room. We heard you on Family Life promoting that, and we still have some questions about it. So once again, here's in basic form, here's the situation. Currently, in New York State, all school districts except the 55 small city school districts can borrow up to 10% of their property tax value for various things, normally for building projects and that kind of thing. Small cities are limited to 5% of their property tax value, which really puts them in a position of having to do multiple projects, which does cost more money because, as you know, inflation is just eating up everything right now. So for most people, other than those that live in the small cities like Olean, Corning, those small cities in New York, 55 of them, it really doesn't make any difference, but it does make a difference to people in those voting cities. So I'm encouraging people to vote yes on that referendum to give people in the small city school districts the ability to borrow up to 10% rather than be limited to 5% of their property tax value. And I encourage people to vote yes on that tomorrow.
All right. Let's talk about chronic absenteeism, Ralph. It is a huge problem, post-pandemic even. Now, a student's chronically absent when they miss 18 days during the academic year. More than 30% of students in New York State are doing that. What's to blame for this?
Well, part of that is certainly parents just not communicating with their children that getting to school is important. You talk about learning loss for the pandemic. This is just compounding that whole issue because if you're not in school, you can't possibly learn the curriculum.
Yeah.
So parents, administrators, and teachers need to really do their very, very best to encourage students to get to school and be part of what's happening there on a day-to-day basis.
Gotcha. I saw in the second largest district in the state, Buffalo, 90% of high schoolers are chronically absent. That is just unbelievable. Then finally, Ralph, it is cold and flu season once again. Everybody's kind of moving indoors now. Share with us some of those timely do's and don'ts to keep yourself healthy during this time of year.
Well, when I was thinking about this, I thought, part of it is really to do with the golden rule, which we know what that is, do to others that you'd want them to do to you. Would you want somebody sneezing, coughing, just saying, I'm really feeling lousy, sitting next to you at work or at school? And if your answer is no, then stay home. And so if you're not feeling well, despite what we said about chronic absenteeism,
Good point.
sorry, it just struck me as being kind of funny. All of a sudden, we say, don't be absent from school, and then in the next segment,
Stay
we're
home.
saying, well, it's okay if you are. Stay home, whatever.
We didn't plan that.
Use good judgment, I guess, is really the idea. If you're not feeling well, stay home. If you're feeling all right, get to school.
All right, good advice, and we'll have to leave it there. But, Ralph, if folks want to know more about those important ballot issues tomorrow, it's Election Day in New York and PA. You have a wonderful website. Where can folks find you online?
Thank you, Bob. Just check us out at yrun.org, yrun.org.